Alright, let's talk file uploads. They sound so simple, right? Just drag and drop and kaboom, you're done. But the reality is it's way trickier than you think, especially if you're working with Next.js. Things can go sideways very fast, from Next.js's 1 MB body size limit to even keeping uploads fast and secure. It's not easy. But after watching this free video, it's about to change forever. I'm taking you from A to Z to teach you how to do file uploads correctly in Next.js. We will start by building a custom drop zone that's fully accessible and tailored to your application. I'm talking unique styles, validation, toasts. It's a drop zone that actually works and that everyone can use. Next, I will break down server-side versus client-side uploads. You will see why client-side uploads is often the best choice, especially if you're working with files which are larger than 1 MB. Now hold on, did I just say client-side uploads are the preferred choice? Yes, I said that. And now you might say, hey Jan, this does not sound safe. Well, we are going to use a temporary API key, kinda like a presigned URL, so that you can upload your files securely without any bottlenecks in terms of size. And we are not stopping here. Once we have covered building the drop zone, uploading files, deleting files, validating our form, I will show you how to work with these uploaded files. Need to retrieve or optimize files? I have covered that in this video. I will even share an example with you where I optimize a file from 2 MB to only a few kilobytes. And all of this is made possible thanks to today's video sponsor, Pinata. Pinata is the best file storage solution on the market. It brings tamper-proof storage, lightning-fast image optimization, access control, in-depth analytics, and even a global CDN. You don't have to bring any CDN from the outside. Everything is baked in. So at the end of the day, your files are secure and very fast. Now let me really quick show you today's workflow. So the process looks like this. I select a file or I drag and drop a file. Then I get a temporary API key from Pinata with a max usage of 1. Then using the temporary API key, I upload the file on the client side. Then I get a success toast. I see the image down below, and if I go to the Pinata dashboard, I see the file inside of there. So, what do you think? Are you ready to level up your file uploading skills? In my opinion, this is the most in-depth video you'll find on YouTube on file uploads, retrieval optimization, and everything like that. We are going to cover everything from A to Z. And now, are you ready? Strap in, get a water. Wait, this water is empty, but get a full water. And now, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Thank you, Pinata, for making this video possible. And now, let's go. Alright friends, it's now time to get started, so let's get started, right? So I'm currently at the Next.js documentation website, and let's right here click on documentation, let's click on installation, and right here we already have a quick start guide to create a brand new project. So right here we have the installation command. Let me copy this right here. Let's go back to the terminal, and in the terminal let me see into my YouTube directory and let me paste the installation command. So this CLI right here will now ask me a few questions. Let's name this project upload Marshall 15. Let me click on enter. I want to use TypeScript, I want to use ESLint, I want to use Tailwind, I won't use the source directory, I will use the app router, I will use TurboPack, and let's not customize the default import alias. So this will now create Bootstrap, our brand new Next.js project, and this will take about a minute or two, and once that's done, I will come back. Alright, so good news, Next.js has finally initialized, installed, bootstrapped, whatever you want to call it, it's now finally finished. So what I can do now is go to VS Code and open the project, and that's what I've already done right here. If you want to do the same, go right here on the top, click on File, and then on Open Folder. But you know what? Right now, let's first of all go through the code base. Let's go through this default template. Let's call it like that. Let's go through it and let's see what we have right here. So on the right side right here in my Explorer, we see we have a few files which have been created when we initialized this template. So we have a tsconfig file. This is for TypeScript. We have a Tailwind file. We have a package.json file. And inside of here, we see what dependencies we use. So we have React 9 19, which is currently in the release candidate state, and then Next.js 15. Now, if you use Next.js 14 or 13 with the app router and also React 18, then this tutorial is completely compatible. You can continue watching it. It completely works, no problem. I use React 19, but you can use React 18. It does not make a difference. So this is what we use as dependencies. What we can also look at is the app folder, and then in the page.tsx you see our default code. This is our index page, and what do you think? Should we see how it looks like? I think we should. So let me open my terminal. I will do that with Command J, or what you can also do is go to the top on terminal and new terminal. Command J is the shortcut, and that's what I will use in this video. Then inside of here, I want to now start my dev server. So let me do a npm run dev, and this will start my dev server on localhost 3000. So what we can do now is copy right here this URL, which is localhost 3000, and let me open that right here in Chrome. So let me open a new tab, and let's open that. Now inside of here, you now see the default page, the default template, and I also have an error right here, and it says hydration failed. Why did right here hydration fail for me? Well, that's because I use a few extensions and they right here don't play very good with React 19. So what I'll do right now is disable my extensions, and then this error will go away. You probably don't even have this error because you probably don't use some extensions that I use. So for you, everything should look normal. That's a problem which I have, and that's because I use a few extensions which mess with React itself. So as you now see, I have removed this one extension which didn't really play good with React 19, and now everything works again, and that's great. So what we have right here is now again our default index page. And does it look good? Yeah, it looks alright, but we can make it better. We want to have a drop zone where we can upload files. So the first thing we can do right now is first of all edit our index page. So let me go back to VS Code, let's close the terminal, and then right here in the return statement, what we can do for now is delete everything right here in the return statement, and then let me just render an h1 and let's say hello world, the classic. So let me again go back, and now we see hello world. So we see we can now edit our page, we see everything works. And that's what we wanted. Now there's one thing which I want to show you right here. If I right here change my theme from light mode to dark mode, you see the background color changes and the text color also changes. So now we have this black background and the text color itself is white. That's cool, that's okay, but I want to change that. I want to always leave the user in white mode or in light mode, whatever you want to call it. So what we have to do is open our globals.css file, and inside of here you will see a few variables or CSS variables, that's how it's called. So at the top we have the @Tailwind classes, and they are required to make Tailwind CSS work. If you delete them, then Tailwind CSS does not work, and that's not what you want. So please leave them right here as they are. They are completely fine, that's great. What we want to delete right here is everything underneath these @Tailwind classes. So this root, this @media, and this body. We don't need that, so let me delete that. And if I now save that again and go back, you now see, even though that I am right here in dark mode, the background color is still white, and we have this text which is black. That's what I wanted. We can leave it like that. And now we already finished with the initial configuration. We have now set up Next.js, we have installed it, we have removed these default classes which change the theme, we don't need them. And then there's only one more thing which I want to do before we now continue and make this whole uploading work. And that's that I want to set up shadcn UI. So what you can do right now is head over to my YouTube description, or you can go to Chrome and write ui.shadcn.com. Now, if you have never heard about shadcn UI, then let me give you a small TLDR. So shadcn UI is a component library which is A, accessible, and also B, styled. So this component library builds on something which is called Radix UI. And Radix UI is cool because it's accessible. But shadcn UI takes these components and makes them styled at the same time it's still accessible, and it's also very easy to customize. And that's why I always use ShadCN for all of my videos, but also for all of my personal projects. So since you now know what ShadCN UI is, I think we can now get started with installing the components which we need for this video. And maybe one thing which I'll also show you right here is that you can also customize the theme, which is cool because maybe you like your website, you have like a red theme, then you can customize it, or an orange theme, you can customize it to whatever you want. So yeah, now we can install it, initialize it, whatever you want to call it. So let me right here go to the top on documentation. Let's go to installation. Let me select Next.js. And right here, we already have a quick start guide to get started with this project, or not with this project, but to get started with initializing ShadCN UI in our project. So this right here is the installation command, npx shadcn init. That's what we need. So what I can do is copy that. And since I use npm, I will copy the npm script. If you use yarn or pnpm or bun, then just copy the corresponding one, which you need. And the process is the exact same. So I will use npm because that's what I use. I will copy that. Let's go back and then let me open the project. Let me click again on Command J to open the terminal. And what I'll do right now is stop my dev server. Now you can also open a second terminal, that's fine, but I always like to restart my dev server to make sure that all of the bundling works as you would expect. So I have now stopped my dev server. Let me clear that. And let's now paste right here this command to initialize ShadCN. And also, friends, don't forget, grab a water. Hydration is important. You see my cup looks very funny, very cool. I just wanted to mention that. Don't forget to drink some water. But let's continue right here. And now it asks us what style we want to use, either the New York style or the default style. Now, honestly, it does not make a big difference. You can select whatever you want. I will just select the default one, so New York right here. Then for the base color, yeah, neutral is fine. And then for the CSS variables, yes, let's use them because later on we can customize them and change them, like for example to a blue theme or orange theme, as I have already shown you a few minutes ago. So let's select yes. And now this should be already all. ShadCN should now configure everything, install everything, and we should have a success in a second. But what do you see right here? We have an error. Something went wrong. Please check the error below. No, that's not what I wanted. What happened? Well, let me show it to you. So if you go through the error message, you see command failed with exit code 1. npm install la 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 did not work. Error resolve unable to resolve dependency tree. So what's the problem right here? Well, it's quite simple. So if you open the package.json, so not this, but the standard package.json, you see I use React 19, which is in a release candidate state. Now the problem is, or not really the problem, the thing is, you can use React 19 and a release candidate. It's completely fine. But not all packages have yet switched over to supporting React 19. So right here you will see, for example, in the terminal, the problem is that Radix UI and its React icons currently don't officially support React 19. But from my testing and also from the GitHub issues and everything like that, it's already safe to use. They have tested everything. They just haven't updated right here the peer dependencies. So what we have to do is run a flag, or not a flag, but how would you call it? Like a command. Yeah, I would call it like that. So you can do a -- legacy peer dependencies, and with this you can just install it and everything will work as you expect. So what I can do right here is just copy this npm install, which I have right here. I can copy that, paste it down below, and then we can do a -- and then I can copy this legacy peer dependencies and paste it right here. Let me now click on enter, and this should now take a second. Now there's one thing which I forgot to mention. If you watch this video probably in a month or two, you won't get this error anymore because React 19 will be probably completely stable without any release candidate. So if you don't have any errors, congrats, you don't have to do anything. But if you have an error, then you will have to fix it as I just did. But now we have installed all of these dependencies, and you might now ask me, hey Jan, what did we install right here? Well, let's go through the package.json file, through the dependencies, and let me show you. So we installed Redux UI icons, we installed CLSX, Lucid React, Tailwind Merge, and Tailwind CSS Animate. And these dependencies are needed to make shardcn work. And for example, Lucid React is an icon library. You can of course copy this URL right here and open that in Chrome. Let me show it to you. So this is an icon library. This is what I use for my projects because probably shardcn uses it, but it's a great library. It's free, open source, and that's why shardcn uses it, and that's why we install it right here. But yeah, that's what we have right here. These are the dependencies which we have installed. We also have a components.json file. This is a configuration file. So right here you see we use React Server components, we use Tailwind, we have right here our aliases. So yeah, we have now configured shardcn UI. And what we want to do now is also, of course, install the components which we need for this video. And for this video, I only need 2 components. And that's first of all the button. So you can go right here to the search documentation field and you can search for the button. And right here it's currently loading. Let's see, button, come on. So right here we now have the button, and that's how the button looks like. So this is currently the default button, but we will use it in this video because it's accessible and very easy to customize. So as an example, if you scroll a bit to the bottom, you will see you have a few variants. You have the primary variant, you have the secondary variant, you have the destructive variant, the outline variant, the ghost variant. You have a lot of variants, and that's what I want, because we will, for example, use later on this destructive variant. We will also use this ghost variant, and it's great that this is already built right into this one component and you don't have to do anything by yourself. And again, it's completely customizable. You can do whatever you want, but we will use the default button because it already looks beautiful. So what we have to do is copy this installation command. I can just copy that right here. I will use npm. Again, you can select right here the one which you use. Let me use npm. Let's go back to VS Code. Let's open the terminal. Let me clear everything and let's paste it inside of here. And now you see we have an error. Why do we have an error? Well, it says right here we have to install again a dependency which is Redux UI React slot. Now, as already mentioned, we get these problems because I use React 19, which is currently in the release candidate state. So again, if you watch this video in a month, you won't have any problems. You can just continue as is, and congrats to that. But right now, this does not work as you expect. So what we have to do is go back to the documentation, and what we'll do right here is a manual installation. So this is a CLI installation. This is what we have just tried. It did not work. So what we'll do is the manual installation. And the first thing we have to do is install this Redux UI React slot dependency. So let me just copy this again using npm. Let's go back. Let's open the terminal. Let me clear that. Let's paste it. And at the end, let's again do a --legacy peer dependencies. Let me now click on enter, and this will now install this dependency package. Yeah. We can now again go back, and now the next step is to add right here this code to our project. So this is the code for the button, this is how it's created, and this is also how it's styled. So what we'll do is again go back, let me close the terminal, let's open the Explorer, let's go in the app folder, and let's right here create a new folder, and let's give it the name of components. Let's click on enter, let me create a new file, and let's do a uppercase button.tsx, and let's paste this code inside of here. No, not this code. So let's again go back, let me copy this code, and then we can paste it in this file. So now we have right here created our button. Nevertheless, we currently have a problem with our CN helper. Now, we again have this problem because we use React 19 and it did not generate that automatically. So we will do that again manually. Let me open the Explorer right here. then let's go in the app folder. Let me create a lib folder, and inside of here, let me create a new file, and let's give it the name of utils.ts. And inside of here, I will now store my CN helper. So what we can do right here is a export function. Let's call it CN. Let's invoke it. And then as params, what I want to do is spread my inputs. So inputs. And this will have a value or a type. This is the correct name. It will have a type of class value. Class value is imported from CLSX. And this is an array. So let's append that. What we can do now is open this function right here, and I want to return something quite simple. This will be a return TW merge. This is imported from Tailwind merge. Then let's import that, let's invoke it, and inside of here, let me pass the CLSX helper. This is imported from CLSX. Let's invoke it, and let's pass our inputs as an argument. So now we have created our CN helper, and now we can use it. So if I again go back, I can delete this import for the CN helper, and I can just import it manually from my lib folder. So now this button component right here does not throw any errors anymore, and now we are finished with the first component. Let's also get our second component, and this will be our toast. So whenever a user uploads a file, I want to show a toast right here. And now the thing with shared CN is that you have two, could you say, variations of toasts? You could either use right here this default toast, which looks good. I mean, let's be honest, it isn't ugly, it's fine. Or you could use something which is called Sona. Sona, I'm not sure how you pronounce it correctly. I will just leave it at Sona. And if you right here click on show toast, you see it looks already a bit better. At least that's my humble opinion. So let's again install that. And to do that, we will do again the manual installation. So you can click right here instead of CLI on manual, and we have to install two packages. This is first of all Sona and Next.themes. So let me copy that using npm. Let's go back, let's open the terminal, let me clear that, let's paste it inside of here, and let me again do a legacy peer dependencies. Let me now click on enter, and now this will install Sona and Next-themes. I can now again go back, and now we have to copy right here this code to create our component. So let's go back, let me close the terminal, let's open the Explorer, and then in the components, let me create right here a, how do we want to call it? Let's maybe call it toast.tsx. Let's click on enter. We can now again copy the code right here and then just paste it inside of here. So now this is already all. We have now created our toast and our button, and now we can use that. And maybe one thing for the toast, we have to also like initialize it. So we have to use the toaster component in the layout, or in other words, we have to render it in the layout. So what I can do is open my root layout, and what we have to do is render it right here underneath the children, but still in the body element. So let me right here get my toaster, and this toaster is imported from the components. Please make sure that you import it from the components and not from Sona itself. This is quite important. So let's import it from the components, and this is self-closing. All right, so now we are done with our core components, our core setup, and everything like that. And now we can get started and make this whole file uploading process work. So what do you think? Are you ready? Let's do that. So what I want you to do right now is head over to my YouTube description and click the first link inside of there. This will then redirect you to Pinata, and we will use Pinata in this video to make file uploads work. Now you will probably ask me right now, hey Jan, what is Pinata? Why do we use it? And why is it so nice to use? So the headline says already everything. Pinata is the internet's file API. Add file uploads and retrieval in minutes so that you can focus on your application. So now we know what Pinata is, but let's look at the features. What does Pinata offer? Why is it so nice to use? Well, if you scroll a bit to the bottom, you right here see the features which it offers for us developers. The first one right here is tamper-proof file storage. What does this mean? Well, right here we can prove content authenticity with a very simple immutable file API. Now, Pinata is very interesting because they have a concept which is the CID, or in other words right here, a unique content identifier. And this is not like a normal ID as you know it, like this UUID, which is just a random generated string. No, these are content addressable hashes based on the contents of your file. So you can upload the same file over and over and it will always return the same CID, or again, in other words, your unique content identifier. And it has a few benefits, but the main ones are, first of all, deduplication and also versioning. And if you now again go back to the landing page, you also see that Pinata offers a CDN right out of the box. This means your files, your images, whatever you plan to store inside of Pinata will be served from a CDN. And this is great because this means your files are available globally. If your user is based in France, then the files will be served from a CDN in France. If your user is in the US, then the files are served from the US. This is a great benefit of CDNs, and that's why you love to use them for files. They also offer very simple access control, and with that I mean you have presigned URLs, limited use API keys, and file groups. Now in this video we will look at access control, and we will look specifically at limited use API keys, because later on we will want to upload our files through the client side, and for that we have to create limited use API keys to make it secure, but we will come to that a bit later on. What else do they offer? They also offer very cool analytics to see how many files have been uploaded, how much bandwidth has been used, and how much storage is already used up. And of course, let's also look at the ease of implementation, because this is very important for us developers. So let's look at these two examples. One is very long, one is quite easy and relatively short to implement. What would you rather implement? Well, probably the right side. And you are in luck, because the right side is Pinata's implementation and the left side is the implementation if you would use S3. And let's be honest, S3 is not easy, it's very complicated, and you also see it right here because you have to write a lot of code. With Pinata, you have to initialize it once, you pass the JWT, you pass your gateway, and then you right here just create your new file, or you upload the file which you want to store right here in the storage. Also, of course, pricing is also a topic which I want to also talk about, and the pricing is very generous. You have a very generous free tier with 1 GB of storage, total 1 gateway. This is like your URL where all of your files will be served from. You have very generous bandwidth, so 10 GB, you have 10,000 requests, and also 1 workspace member. This is the perfect setup for you when you want to first of all learn about Pinata, implement it in your project, and to see how it works. And maybe one thing which I also want to mention right here is one feature which I haven't talked about, and that's if you go to the documentation, you see they have a feature which is image optimization. We will also dive into that a bit later on in the video, but the TLDR of that is that you can optimize your images with a width or height, with for example the image fit. This means scale down, contain, cover, whatever you need. So we will talk about that a bit later on in the video. Nevertheless, this is a feature which is great. So yeah, now you know what Pinata is and why it's so great. So what do you think? Is it time to get started? I think so. So to get started, what we'll do is go right here to the top right corner and click on Get Started, because right now I will assume that you don't have an account yet with Pinata. If you already have an account, then it's quite simple, just click on Login and then I will see you in the dashboard. But if you don't have an account yet, then let's do that right here, or create an account together. So the first thing we have to do is first of all pass an email. So I will blur out my email because I don't want to leak it, but you have to just type your email right here. So let's right here do that. So I have now passed my email. Then for the first name, this will be Jan. For the last name, this will be Marshall. And then for the password, let me just right here click on Suggest password. Let me now click on sign up. Alright, as you now see, I have signed up, and what I have to do now is right here verify my email to activate my account. So let's head over to Gmail. Alright, I'm now in Gmail, and let me now click right here on verify email. As you now see, I got redirected back to the dashboard right here, or in other words to the onboarding route. So first of all, we have to select our plan right here. We want to use the free plan, so let me select this right here. Then what is my role? I am a full stack developer. For you, you should select whatever you are. Then the next question which we have right here is, what is your project category? So for me, this is right here a personal project, but for you, it could be either a gaming project, a social project. So select whatever it is. And then the last question which they have right here is, how did you hear about us? Well, you heard about Pinata through YouTube. So let's select that. And now let's click on Let's Build. So now we got redirected to the dashboard. This is how it looks like. And I guess we can now get started. So before we maybe implement Pinata in our application, let's maybe first of all go through the dashboard and see what we have right here. So on the left side, we have a sidebar. On the top, you have my workspace. Then we have all of our links. And let's start with the first one. The first one is the main one, which we'll use in this video. And this is the button, the link, whatever, for your files. So inside of here, once we upload a few files, we will see them all inside of here. You will see your files, you will see your groups, everything like that. Then we have right here the toolbox. Inside of here, you will see all of your analytics, so the bandwidth used, files pinned, requests, storage, gateways. As you see, everything right now is at 0%. That's because we haven't yet implemented anything, but once we start uploading files, you'll see that the bandwidth used will go up, and also, for example, the storage and everything like that. Then let's continue. What else do we have right here? Well, we have a gateway, and now you might ask me, hey Jan, what is a gateway? What does it do right here? Well, it's quite simple. Right here they wrote about it, and a Pinata gateway at its core is a CDN. It lets you load files you've stored, and it ensures speed, reliability, and global reach. You get this out of the box without having to reach for another service to set up additional configuration. Beyond the CDN functionality, Pinata's gateway comes with additional perks. Want a custom domain? No problem. A gateway per project? Also no problem. Private and public file support? No problem. And of course, you can also use plugins to extend the gateway even further. So as you see, at its core, a gateway is a CDN to serve the files, but in reality, it's much more. You can use it, as they also mention right here, to make your files public, private, so access control. You can also use it for custom domains and everything like that. Now, for this video, you can just remember it as in CDN with a few more perks, if you want to remember it like that. Then we also have our API keys right here. Currently we don't have one, but we will create one in a second. And then we also have the marketplace right here, but we don't need that for this video. So now you know how the dashboard works, how it looks like, and what we will use in this video. So I think it's now time to implement Pinata in our project. So on the bottom left corner, you have the tab or the button for documentation. So let's click on that. This will open in a new tab. And inside of here, we now have a quick start guide. So what I want to do right here is first of all select our framework. We use Next.js, so let's select that. And what we have to do now is first of all create an API key and get the gateway URL. So to create an API key, I already told you, we have to go to the API keys in the sidebar, and then right here we can create a new key. So let me click on new key and let's give it a name. And for the name, I will just say, let's call it upload Marshall. You can name it whatever you want. It does not really matter. And then for the scope, I want to make it an admin key. What we can do now is generate this API key. And now we have right here the API key, the API secret, and the JWT. Now, what we need for this video is the JWT. So what I will do is copy this JWT, let me go back to VS Code, and inside of here, let's open the Explorer, and in the Explorer, what I want to do is create a new env file. So let's create a .env, and inside of here, we can store all of our environment variables. So let me just paste it inside of here for now. So this JWT has been now added, and if I go back to the documentation, the next step is to now add also our gateway URL. So to get our gateway URL, we have to go to the dashboard. I can close this modal, we don't need it anymore. And then if I click on gateways, you see we already have one right here, and I can just copy it. So let me copy it, let's go back, and let me just paste it right here down below in the env file. Great, now we have our JWT and our gateway, and before we continue, please make sure that if you open your .gitignore file, you should have right here a .env added. If you don't have it, then please add it down below, so .env, because you don't want to commit your environment variables, your secrets, to your GitHub repository. These secrets should stay local, so again, please make sure that this is added in your gitignore. And now we can continue with the documentation. So let's go back to the docs and let's close that. And then in the documentation, we want to now use the files API. So let me click on that, and now we can continue. So now we have another quick start guide. But if you scroll a bit through it, the first step is to set up a Next.js project. We already did that, so we can skip that. And the next step is to install the Pinata SDK. So what I can do is just copy that. Let me again go back. Let me open my terminal and let me paste it. And let me do a --legacy-peer- dependencies. And again, we have to do this --legacy peer dependencies because we use React 19 release candidate, and this throws a few problems and you don't want that. And using this --legacy peer dependencies, we just make sure that everything is fine and that we don't get any errors. So now we have installed the SDK, which is great, and now we can continue with the documentation. So the next step right here is to add our environment variables. So if you can remember, we already have our JWT and our gateway, but currently we just store them as values. But now we have to also create the actual variable names. So I can just copy this right here. Let's go back to the env file and let me just paste it right here down below. So this is the Pinata JWT and then the next public gateway URL. So for the gateway URL, I can copy this right here and just paste it right here. So now this public gateway URL is equal to the actual value. And let's also do the same for our JWT. Let me copy it and let me just paste it inside of this JWT. So now we have configured both environment variables, both look good, both are finished. And let's head over back to the documentation and continue with the quick start guide. So the next step is to set up Pinata. And to set up Pinata, we can right here create a new file and just initialize it once and use it whenever we need. So what I'll do is again open my Explorer, then let's go in the app folder, let's go in the lib folder, and let's create a pinata.ts file. So now we have created that. I can now copy this code right here and let's just paste it inside of here. Now you might ask me, hey Jan, what does this code do? What did we just copy paste right here? Well, let me explain it to you. So on the top, we first of all mark this file as server only. This means we want to only make this code accessible through the server side, not through the client side. We don't want to get any hackers. Then the next step, which we do right here, is initialize Pinata. So we pass our JWT and our Pinata gateway. And that's all we did, to be honest. We just initialized Pinata and we said at the top that this code should only be accessible through the server side. Not through the client side, but through the server side. That's why it's called server only. Alright, so now this is finished. I can close this again and let's continue with this quick start guide. The next step is to now create our client-side form. So right here they say next, we will want to make an upload form on the client side that will allow someone to select a file and upload it. So what I want to do is open my page.tsx right here, and what I will do right here is copy everything in the return statement. Let's just copy that and then let's paste it for the return statement right here. So let's do in return and let me paste it inside of here. Now you see we currently get a few errors, and that's because I want to also copy right here everything above the return statement. So this constant handle change, this right here constant upload file, and these three use states. I can just copy all of them and paste them above the return statement, but still in the export default function. And don't worry, I will explain everything in a second. So right now, let's first of all import right here use state from React. So great, now we don't have any errors anymore. And now let me explain to you what we did right here. So let's start from the bottom. First of all, we have a return statement with a main element. We just align it to the center. Then we have our file input. So right here, the type is file, and we have a onChange handler. This onChange handler just manipulates our state, because what we want to do is set our state with the file which we have selected. That's why we do right here an e.target.files. We get the first file which we selected and we set it into state. Then we also have a button, and right here we have a loading state. So if the button is currently pending, then we say uploading. And if we are currently not pending or uploading, then we just say upload. So this right here is first of all the bottom half, if you want to call it like that. And then we also have the upload file function. And this function is relatively interesting because this is not a standard function, but a asynchronous function. And this means in this function right here, we upload our file. So first of all, we have a try catch statement. We check that we have a file. And if we have a file, if we selected something, we set our state, so the set uploading to true, then we get our form data, we set our file in the form data, and then we right here do our request to a route handler. Now you might say, hey Jan, make it a bit slower. What route handler, what API route, what are you talking about? So in a second, we will create a route handler, and using the route handler, we will upload the file through the server side. So this form right here is on the client side, but we will create a route handler, and this route handler will upload the file through the server side. So this is what we do right here. We do a post request to this route handler, which currently does not exist, and as body we just pass our file. We then also right here get a signed URL. This is the return which we get from the route handler, and then we set right here this URL in state. We set uploading to false, and then we catch an error if we have an error. So this is the code. It's relatively simple right here. Currently it does not work because we don't have a route handler, but I think we still can start our dev server to see if we have any errors. So let me open my terminal, let me clear everything, and let's do an npm 1 dev. If I now again go back and open localhost 3000, we should see a problem, a error, and that's what you have right here. So it says failed to compile, and why did we fail? What's the problem? Well, right here you are importing a component that needs use state. This React hook only works in a client component. So what we have to do right here is mark this file as use client. And that's because use state relies on a JavaScript bundle. So let's mark this right here as use client. And with that, we now have interactivity because we now ship a JavaScript bundle. And now we shouldn't get any error anymore. And now you see the form right here. We have our input and we have the button right here. Does it look good? No, but we will fix that as you know. Right now, what we can do is first of all select a file. So I have now selected a file, and if I click on upload, you see trouble uploading file. So this is currently right here. If you go again to our code, this is this upload file function, and right here we have the catch statement which throws an alert and says trouble uploading file. and it has trouble, it throws an error because this route handler does not exist. And that's what we want to fix right now. So what I want you to do right now is again go back to the documentation, and that's what I will also do right here. And the next step right here is to create a route handler. Now right here they have a warning about size limitation. I will come to that in a second because this is very important. But for now we can create right here this API route or route handler, whatever you want to call it. For that, we can again go back, we can open the Explorer, go in the app folder, and then in the app folder, let me create an API folder. Then in the API folder, let me create a files folder. And then in the files folder, let me create a route.ts file. So now we have an API folder, then a files folder, and then a route.ts file. And at the end of the day, we have now created a route handler, and a route handler is just a different word for an API route. And we will use this route handler to make the request to Pinata to upload our image. So if you again go back, what we can do right here is just copy this code. Let me copy that and let's paste it inside of here. And right here you currently see we have an error. That's for the import statement where we import Pinata. So what I can do for now is just delete this import statement and let's import it manually. So let's import Pinata from my lib folder. So now this is imported and now we don't have any errors anymore. Also, one thing which I'll do right here is I will delete this export constant config. We don't need that anymore. We use Next.js 15 and the app router, and this is not needed anymore inside of here. So now we have our route handler, and now I already know you will ask me, hey Jan, what do we do right here? Well, let me explain it. So what we do right here is first of all create a new route handler, and this is a post request because we want to do a mutation. We don't want to get some data, but we want to post something to Pinata. We want to upload a file. And then inside of here, we now do a try catch statement. We now first of all get our form data, and what we also do is get our file. So we do a form data, or in other words, a data.get, and we get the file. Because again, right here in the body, we pass our file, and that's what we get right here. So now we have our file, and what we do then is upload the file to Pinata. And as you see, it's very, very simple. We just do an await pinata.upload.file, we invoke it and pass the file as an argument. And tada, we have uploaded the file. In theory, you could now delete the rest of the code and everything would still work because you have done the main part. You have now uploaded the file to Pinata. But what we also do right here now is also create a signed URL. We pass our content ID and we pass our expiry time, which is in seconds. Now you will probably ask me, hey Jan, what is a signed URL? Man, make it simple. What the hell is that? Again, let me explain it for you guys. So what I want to say right here is the documentation is always your best friend. Whatever you do, whatever you use, always check the documentation. And right here you will see you can create a signed URL that can be used to access the content for a limited amount of time. So this is the expiry date or the expiry time. If you say 30, then you will say, hey, this image should be available for 30 seconds, not any longer. After 30 seconds, you will get an error and it will say something like expiry time is finished or link invalid or something like that. So a signed URL at the end of the day is just something with which you can limit the amount of time for which the file is accessible. That's what a signed URL is if you want to dumb it down a bit. So yeah, now we know that. So that's what we do right here. We create a signed URL and then we just return it right here and we return a status of 200. Also, we do have a catch statement where we return an error if we have an error. And yeah, that's all we did. We now have our route handler and this is great. Also, please make sure that this route handler, or not this route handler, but that this file matches your route handler. So you should have an API folder and then a files folder. And please make sure that the route is or the file is called route.ts, because if it's named hello.ts, then this won't work. So please make sure that it's named route.ts. So this should now be all. I guess we can test it out. Let me go to the documentation. Is there something I forgot? No, we added that. We have all of this. Nope, it looks good to me. Let's test it out. So let me go to my code right here. Let me do a hard refresh. Let me select a file. I have now selected a file and let me click on upload. We have an uploading state and let's see. Okay, I guess something happened. Let me go to the dashboard right here, not this, but this one right here. Let me go to the files and congrats guys, you have uploaded a file and we see it right here in the dashboard. I can also open that. As you see, I can click on it and then the image is rendered right here. It looks great, everything works as expected. We have our CID, we have the created at timestamp. And yeah, congrats everyone. Thanks for watching this video. No, I'm joking, we're still not done. Let's now create a custom form, let's make client-side uploads work and everything like that. So now let's get to the fun stuff. Alright friends, let me really quick recap what we did right here. So what we have right here is a server-side upload. This means we have a form. So if we again go to the code, we have our form right here and then we have a route handler, so an API route, and it uploads the file through the server side. But now we have a problem. Let me show it to you. Right here in the documentation, if you go to the top, it says right here, Next.js has a limit of how large a file can be passed through the built-in API routes, so through the route handlers. If you need to enable larger uploads, follow the client-side setup guide. So what's the problem? Well, when you work with Next.js, it has a body size limit. This means you have just a maximum size that can be processed through Next.js and through the server side. And right here, as you see, it's 1 megabyte. So if your image at the end of the day is bigger than 1 megabyte, so 2 megabytes, 3 megabytes, 4 megabytes, 5 megabytes, then this won't work. And right here in local development, it will work. So if you right here upload 20 gigabytes one file, it will work because you are in a local environment. But once you deploy your application to Vercel, to a serverless provider, to anywhere, you won't have this benefit anymore and it will fail if you upload anything bigger than 1 megabyte. So as they mention right here, one solution to fix that is to upload your file through the client side. And now you might say, hey Jan, the client side is not very safe. How can we make it safe and allow the user to upload through the client side, don't get any problems with size limits, but at the same time make it secure? Well, let me show you a little graph which I have created. So the title, Secure Client-Side Uploads. So right here we have our Next.js application. Step number 1, we go to Pinata, we use the SDK and we get a temporary API key. We will say, hey, I want to get an API key which only has a max usage of 1. This means the user gets an API key, it has a usage of 1, and the user can only use the API key once. And after the API key has been used, the API key is not deleted, but it's inactive. So as you see, we get the temporary API key from Pinata, and then Pinata returns the temporary API key to our Next.js application. This is step number 1. We also have step number 2, and step number 2 is to upload the file on the client side. So right here we again have Pinata, and now we use the API key and we upload the file through the client side. And again, this is secure because this is a temporary API key which only works once. And once we upload the file to Pinata, as you know, we first of all get a CID, so a unique content identifier. We get right here image optimization. We have our CDN, our gateway, and of course we can use our signed URLs to, at the end of the day, limit the amount of time a file is available to the public. So that's what we want to do. This is let's say the optimal solution when you work with Next.js. You want to always upload on the client side, but you want to make it securely, and that's why we have to get a temporary API key to allow the user to upload on the client side. Again, security is very important, and that's why we do this right here. Of course, in theory, you could just upload it through the client side without any temporary API keys, but I'll be honest with you, it's not safe. You will get hacked at some point, and that's not what you want. So this is what we'll do. We'll get an API key and then we will upload the file. So let's do that. So as I always say, the documentation is your best friend. So let's head over right here to the docs and let's go to the bottom to the client side setup. So this is again a quick start guide, and the first step is again to create a Next.js project, to install Pinata, We already did that. So what we can do is skip right here to the step where we have to create an API route, because we have to now create a route handler to get our temporary API key. We don't want to upload through the API route, we want to just get the key and then upload through the client side. So we will create an API route, and in order to upload on the client side, we need an API key, but we don't want to expose our primary admin key. We want to leave it in the server side. We want to just have a temporary key. So to avoid this, we will make an API route in our project. So what I want you to do is again go back, let's open Explorer, let's go in the app folder, API folder, and inside of here, let me create a key folder. And then in the key folder, let's create a route.ts. So this is now a route handler, and what we can do right here is copy this code. Let me copy it and let's paste it inside of here. So currently we get an error. This is the import for Pinata. The import statement is incorrect, so we can just delete it and I can import it manually right here from my lib folder. So great, we have now imported Pinata. I can also delete this next request. We don't need that. And now we have created this route handler. What does this route handler do? Good question. Let's go through it. So what we have right here is a API route, and it's interesting because this is a GET request. So for our files route, we had a POST request, but this is a GET request. We again have a try-catch statement, and the code inside of here is relatively simple. We first of all create right here a UUID with the crypto package, so we just create some unique ID, and then right here we already use Pinata to generate, or not to generate, but to create an API key. So we right here pass a key name. This is our UUID, which we have created right here, and then we get our permissions. So right here you see, if you go to the documentation, when the client makes a GET request to this API route, it will return a temporary API key that is only valid for pin files to IPFS and one single use. And that's what we have right here, max uses one. What does max uses one mean again? So this means this route handler, no, not this route handler, but the API key is only available once. Once the file has been uploaded, the API key is invalidated and it won't work anymore. And that's why we right here say max uses one. We want to upload one file and then we can just not delete it, but we can deactivate the key. So that's what we do right here. And then at the end, we just return our key data, so the API key, and if we have some error, we catch it and we just return right here a message which says error creating the API key. So this is the code. As you see, relatively simple. We create a UUID, we then pass it for the key name. We have right here our permissions. We have the max uses, which is 1. You can update it to 5, then you will have 5 uses, but 1 is what we'll use in this video, and that's already all. As you see, quite simple. We then return it, and now we will get it in the front end and then upload the image through the client side. So since we now understand that, we can now finish off our right here form again. So right here we have our form. For that, let's again go back to the documentation, and what I want to do right here is copy this constant upload file, or let's actually copy everything. So this constant handle change, constant upload file, and the 2 states. Let's copy that, let's go back, and let's paste it inside of here. So I will delete everything right here and paste what I've just copied. As you see, nothing has really changed. We only currently get one problem, and that's for Pinata. So let me import Pinata from the lib folder, and now we don't have any problems anymore. But what has changed in this code to the previous one? So instead of now calling, or not calling, but instead of now fetching or doing a POST request to our route handler, we now right here upload the file through our client-side form. So what we do right here is create a try-catch statement. We set our set uploading state to true, so we are uploading. Then right here, we first of all fetch our key route because we want to now get our API key, which is temporary with only 1 usage. We then get it right here. We now have our key data. And the interesting thing is now right here for our upload, we right here first of all upload the file to Pinata and we pass our key. And if you go to the documentation right here, you'll see the main thing to understand here is that we are able to use the key right here method in combination with our upload methods, which passes in the temporary key instead of trying to access the admin key. So if you wouldn't pass the .key right here, this method, then you would use your admin key. You don't want that. We want to upload it through the client side, and we don't want to give it admin permissions. So right here, if you again paste the key method, you now make sure that this is a max or a temporary key which only has one usage. We then also console log our upload, so the result, and then we set uploading to false. This is all we did right here. We now do client-side uploads instead of server-side uploads, and we make sure that it's secure because we passed this .key method with our API key, which is temporary. If you open right here your files API route, you will see the code is the same. We right here do a constant upload data, pinata.upload file. The only thing we changed is at the end a .key where we passed our key. But the code is exactly the same, to be honest. So now, in theory, it should work. So let me check, is my dev server running? Yes. Then what we can do is right here do a hard refresh and let me upload a file. So let me select something. So I have now a file. Let's click on upload. We have our loading state. We will now go to the route handler, get the API key, and it will upload through the client side. We can also open right here the dev tools. So let's click on inspect. Let's go to our network. Let me again click on upload, and right here you see the call. We first of all get our key, then we get the key right here as a response, and then we upload our file. And as a response, we get the ID, the name, the CID, the created at timestamp, and everything like that. So again, we first of all get our temporary API key from our route handler, then we have the response right here, and then we take this API key and we use our files right here, or not our files, but we upload our file to Pinata. And as a response, we get all of these values. So what I can do now is go to the dashboard and check out the file. I'm now in the dashboard, and one thing which I'll mention right here is please make sure that you click right here on the files folder, not on this web3 folder, but on the top one. And now you already see the image right here. I can again click on it. It will open in a new tab. And then we have the image right here. We have a CID, we have the created at timestamp, and this works beautifully. So now we are done with that, to be honest. We have now our client-side uploading process. I think you now all understand how it works and why it's secure. And now we can create our beautiful form, and then we will be done with this drop zone. So let's get started with that. Alright, now to create our drop zone, we will use something which is called React-Dropzone. Again, all links in the YouTube description. You don't have to do any typing, just click on it and you will get redirected. What is React-Dropzone? Why will we use it? So right here, React-Dropzone is a simple React hook to create an HTML5 compliant drag and drop zone for files. So that's what we'll use. The interesting thing with React-Dropzone is that at the end of the day, it's headless. This means it's not styled or anything like that. It just gives you the base layer and you style it yourself. So that's why we will use it in this video. So I can copy this name right here, React-Dropzone. We can go back to the VS Code project. Let me open the terminal, let me stop my dev server, let's clear everything, and let's do an npm I, let's paste right here the package name, and let me also do a -- legacy peer dependencies. Again, if you use React 19, which is stable, then you won't get any problems right here, and you also don't have to do this -- legacy peer dependencies. But since I'm in the release candidate state of React 19, I have to do that. But again, if you already have React 19, which is the stable version, forget this -- legacy peer dependencies and just continue as we always do. So now I can close that. Now we have installed it. And the interesting thing is that this drop zone relies on a JavaScript bundle. This means we have to initialize it using this use client directive. And what I will do is create it in a separate component. So let's open the Explorer. Then let's go in the app folder, in the components folder, and let's create a dropzone.tsx. So now we have our drop zone, which is great. And if I now go back to the documentation, what we can do right now is copy right here the first example. So right here usage, and we can just copy this right here. I will copy it, go back, and let me paste it inside of here. So in theory, we have now initialized React drop zone. We have it right here. Currently, I get an error right here, and that's because I have to right here give it in type because I use TypeScript, but besides that, we don't have any problems right here. So in theory, what we can do right now is render it in our page.tsx. So what I'll do is delete everything in the page.tsx and let's start off fresh. Since this is in route, let's do a export default function. Let's call it home. Let's invoke it and let's open that. And then inside of here, let's create a return statement. Let me return a div. And then in this div, let me create an h1. And in the h1, let me just say upload and let's say Marshall. So upload Marshall. Then I can open my terminal and let's also restart our dev server. So let's do an npm run dev. And let me again go back and let's do a hard refresh. So now we should see in a second the h1, and that's what we have right here. Let's center it in the middle. So let's give this div a class name and let's right here do a maximum width of 4xl. Let's do an mx of auto to center it in the middle, because if I don't say mx of auto, you see it's still on the left side. But if I again say mx of auto, it will now be centered, or we now have the padding on the right side and it's now in the middle. Then let's again go back, let's continue. What else do I want to say? Let's do a minimum height of screen, so 100 viewport height. Let's do a W of screen, let's do a flex of column, and I want to center everything in the middle, so we just do an items of center and a justify of center. If I now again go back, you now see it's centered in the middle, and that's what we wanted. We can also give it like an BG of red 500 so that you can see how this container looks like. And yeah, that's what we created. We gave it a maximum width. So this container has a maximum width. And then we just center it right here in the middle. Or not centered, but yeah, we center it in the middle. And then we take the content, which is inside of the div, and we put it in the center of the container with the justify center and items of center. So yeah, we can now again delete the BG red 500. We don't need that anymore. And let me also make the h1 a bit bigger. So let's give it a class name and let's say text of 5xl and let's do a font of bold. If you now again go back, you now see it's way bigger, and that's better. Let's maybe also wrap the Marshall itself right here in a span element, and let me give the span element a class name which will be of text primary. Text primary is a class name which is provided by shardcn, and this is a CSS variable. If I now again go back, you see nothing has changed, and that's because our theme is currently this black theme. So if you go to ui.shardcn.com, again all links in the YouTube description, we can go to the themes and we can change our theme. And I want to customize it from this default zinc theme to this blue theme, because I want the primary color to be this blue. So I can now copy this code right here. Let's copy that. Let me again go back and let's open our globals.css file. Inside of here, we now have a layer base. So this is this one right here, not the bottom one, but the middle one. We can delete this and paste what we have just copied. So these are our CSS variables, and now our theme has changed. So if I go back to our website, you now see upload is black and Marshall is blue. Again, this is because this is now our new theme and our primary color. And now we're done with that. Let's again close the globals file, and right here underneath the h1, I can now render our drop zone. So let me get the drop zone. This is imported not from React drop zone, but from our components. And we currently don't get it because we don't export this function. So in the drop zone, what we can do right here is a export function, and let's rename it to drop zone. And again, don't worry, I will explain everything in a second, but for now I first of all want to see the drop zone in our page. So now we do a export function drop zone, and now I can get it right here in the page.tsx. So I can now import the drop zone from the components. This is self-closing, And if I save that and go back, you now see we have an error. And that's because useRef only works in client components. And right here, our Dropzone is currently a server component. But as already mentioned at the start, when we implemented this Dropzone right here relies on a JavaScript bundle. This means we have to mark this component on the top as use client. If you now again go back right here, you see this error is gone, and that's what we wanted, to be honest. So now we're done with that, and as you see, we now have this drag and drop right here. I can click on it, then right here my window opens, and in theory I can also drag something inside of here. So let me see, I can right here take a file, and then you see the drag and drop. So we now see that the core base layer works, but you probably still don't really understand what this code right here does. So let me show it to you, or let me explain it. So the first thing we do right here is export a function. This is the Dropzone, and we export a function because I have to get the function somehow to render it in the page.tsx. And that's why we do an export function and not just a standard function. What else do we have right here? Well, we have this constant on drop. This is the callback right here. And inside of here, we can just do whatever we want when the user drops a file. So in theory, what I could do right here is a console.log. Let's get our accepted files. And if I again go back and right here drag and drop a file. So let me again get this right here. Let's drag and drop it right here. And if I again open the terminal, you should see right here, or you don't see anything right here. That's because we have to open right here our inspector. And if you open right here the console, you now see an array with one item inside of here. And we have the path, we have the name, we have the size, the type, and everything like that. So this use callback is there to, at the end of the day, listen to when a file is dropped, and then you have the ability to do whatever you want with this file or with this information. And what we also then right here have is our use Dropzone hook, which we initialize right here. We pass our onDrop function as an argument, and we also destructure the get root props, the get input props, and the isDrag active. Now, as an example right here, the isDrag active is a boolean. This means, again, if I show it to you, if I take a file right here, so let's take this, if I come on, please take the file, man. So if I now drag over this right here, you see it changes. So instead of saying drag and drop some files here, it now says drop the files here. And this is the boolean. So whenever we are hovering with a file over the Dropzone, this boolean is true, and then we just do a ternary. And then right here for the diff and the input, we just spread the get root props and the get input props, and these are the properties needed to make everything work and accessible. So yeah, this is the core Dropzone. We now understand how it works, and let's maybe also fix this annoying problem with the accepted files. So what type is accepted files? Well, it's a file which is an array, because again, if you open your console, you probably saw inside of there, if I open it right here, you saw it's an array within file. So now the base layer is finished. We have now created that, and now we can style our Dropzone. And now to style our Dropzone, instead of going to this div and giving it a class name, we have to do it a bit differently. We have to go right here to the get root props. Let's open right here a object, and then I can give it a class name. And this will be relatively simple. Let's first of all give it some padding. Let's say 16. Let's do a bit of margin top with 10. Let's do a border, and this will be of dashed. And as you see, sadly, we don't get any TypeScript helping, but I guess it's fine because it's not that hard to write. Then let's also say rounded of LG, and let's do a border of 2. If you now save this and again go back, you now already see, hey, we have a Dropzone, and it does not even look bad. It looks quite good, if I'm honest. So now this is finished. We have this right here. What do we do now? Well, now I want to adjust this text right here, or not adjust the text, but I want to render a button in the Dropzone to select files. And to do that, it's relatively simple. Right here we have the isDrag active boolean, and as I already mentioned, it's active whenever we are dragging over the Dropzone. And then we have the ternary, and then we render whatever is the correct value for the current boolean. So if it's true, if we are currently dragging, then we say right here, drop the files here, and if not, then we say drag and drop blah blah blah. So we can leave this first ternary, so if it's true, drop the files here is fine, we don't have to change it. But right here, if it's not true, if we are not dragging over the drop zone, let me copy the p tag, don't forget it, just copy it. Then let me get a div element and let's again paste the p tag. Then underneath the p tag, I want to get my button component. So let's get the button component from our components. Let's open the button and inside of here, let me just say select files. Let's again go back and now you have the button right here. Does it look good? I don't think so. So let's give this div right here, div wrapper div, a class name. And for the class name, let's just say flex of column. Let's also do an items of center to centered in the middle. Now this already looks good, but I want to have some spacing. So what we can do is give this div element right here also a gap y of 3, which gives it a bit of spacing. And I think that's all, to be honest. Let's again go back. Yeah, I guess if you want to, you can make the text bigger. But I'll be honest with you, I think this is fine enough and I think we can leave it as is. But I'll be honest with you, I think this looks good and I think we are done with that. So what we have to do now is make this uploading functionality work, because I can currently drag and drop a file. So let me again show it to you. So let me right here get a file and let's drag and drop it. So let me select it. Let's take it right here. And if I drop it, nothing happens. That's okay for now, but did you see it does not look very good? This is kind of weird, not really what I want. This looks quite hideous. So we have to somehow make it look better. So when I drag over this right here, it currently has like some weird layout change. So what I'll do is give right here this class name with our get root props. Let me give it a W of full. So now it takes the width of full. And if I now drag a file, so let me select one, you see, okay, we don't have this weird layout change anymore. That's good, to be honest. But now we have the problem that this is not centered in the middle. So we can give this p tag a class name of text center. So let's right here say text of center. And if I now again go back and try to drag and drop something, this should now look better. And yes, we can now leave it like that. We are done with that. Maybe also one thing which you could do is change the maximum width. So currently, if you go to the page.tsx, we have a maximum width right here of 4XL. You could say 3XL. If you again go back, yeah, that's fine. Maybe even 2XL. Let's again go back. Or maybe even XL. Let's check this out. Yeah, I think max width XL looks the best and we can leave it like that. So if I can do a drag and drop, yes, it works beautifully. All right, so now we are done with that. And let's now make the functionality work so that the user can upload the image to Pinata. Alright, so now to make file uploading work, we will first of all have to create state. Then once we have state, we can use this onDrop callback right here to manipulate our state and to store our files in the state. And once that's done, we can upload our files to Pinata. So that's what we want to do, and that's, I guess, the workflow which we will have to do right now. So let me first of all create our state. Let's go right here above the onDrop callback and let's go inside of the export function Dropzone. And inside of here, let's do a constant. Let's get our array brackets and we will have a getter and a setter. So let's do a files and let's do a set files, and this will be equal to use state. Use state is imported from React and let's invoke it. Now, as you already know, or I hope you know it, files right here is the getter and set files is our setter. Now for the use state, I also want to set a initial state, and the initial state will be a empty array right here. And now we are already finished with the state. We can now use it and manipulate it right here in our onDrop callback. So what I can do right here is delete the console.log. I don't think we need it anymore because you all understand what this callback does right here. And now we can manipulate our state. So whenever a user drops a file or multiple files in our drop zone, I want to get them right here. So we have this accepted files, and then I want to store these accepted files in my state. So what we can do right here is first of all a if check. We want to check if we have accepted files. So let's do an if check and let's say if we have accepted files dot length, then this means we have to manipulate our state. So let's do a set files, let's invoke it. Then as in param right here, let me get the previous files, so the files which are already stored in state, and then we can right here return it as an array. Why do we return it right here as an array? Well, it's quite simple. We have a initial state of an array and we want to store our files in a array, not like in one object, but we will have one array with multiple objects. So now we have that, and now the first thing I want to do is spread my previous files. You do that with a dot dot dot. So we take the previous files, we lay them into the state, and now we want to add our new files also to the state after the previous files. So we can do a comma and do a dot 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 accepted files. So now we spread our previous files and accepted files, and now our state has all of our files. But now we have a problem. So right here it says type file array is not assignable to type never array. What's exactly the problem right here? Well, the problem is that right here we now pass a file to our array, but our useState right here just knows that this is an array. So what we have to do right here is tell the state, or in other words TypeScript, that we want to specifically store an array with multiple objects inside of there, and these objects will be files at the end of the day, or they will contain the information for the file. So what we can do right here for the useState is add a generic, and then inside of here the question is, what do you want to store inside of here? Well, this is first of all an array, so let's say array. Then we can add another generic inside of here, and for this generic, what do we have for the array? Well, we have an object. Inside of the object we have a file, and this file is equal to a file. So this is what we have right here. The generic is an array, and the array has a child, and the child is an object which is a file. So I hope this makes sense. Later on we will have another child. So as an example, we will have an ID and we will have like this loading state. I will add that later on. For now we just want to store our file. And now we have an error for our right here set files manipulation function, whatever you want to call it. So what you have to do now is map over our accepted files. So let's do a dot map. Let's invoke it as in param. Let me just get a file. Then let me just return that with parentheses. Let's open a object and let's pass our file. Again, we get our file right here, and now we pass it in the object. So to recap, what we did right here is we created a new array. We manipulated our state. We spread our previous files, because maybe you already dropped 2 images in the Dropzone. We spread them, and then we spread our new files which have been dropped. So if you already had like, I don't know, 2 files and you dropped another 2 files, we will have an array with 4 objects, 4 files, and the first 2 ones will be the old files, and then we will have the 2 new ones after that, because we first of all right here spread the previous files and then our new files. So now we're done with that. We have now created right here, or we have now manipulated our state, and what you can do now is console log your files. So let's do a console.log files, and we can now test it out. So let's go back, let me do a hard refresh, and let me maybe select 2 files. So I have now selected 2 files. As you see, we don't have any update in the UI, but that's fine, we will fix that. And if I now click right here on inspect and go to the console, you see we have an array with 2 children. And that's because I right here dropped or selected 2 files. We have right here the first file with all of the paths and everything like that, and then we have the second file right here. So we now see this works. We see that we can right here manipulate our array, or not our array, but our state, and now we can use this information to upload our file to Pinata. And that's what I want to do right now. So to upload our file, we want to create a separate function. So above this constant onDrop, but underneath this state, we can do a constant upload file, and this will be a standard arrow function. So this will be equal right here to our parentheses, and then let's just open the arrow function. So now we have that, and inside of here we can now do whatever we want. And what do we want to do? Well, we want to upload a file. And since we want to upload a file, this will be a async right here function. So the first thing I want to do right here is first of all create a try catch statement. So let's create our try statement. Inside of here, in a second, we will write all of our code. So we will upload everything right here, ... We will do that inside of the try statement, but we need a catch statement to catch any errors which maybe incur while uploading the image. Maybe the user lost his internet connection or something like that. So let's right here do a catch statement. Let's invoke it as in param. Let me just get right here a error and then let me just open that. Now for the catch statement, in theory, you can do whatever you want. We will do two things. We will first of all do a console.log, and let me right here just pass our error. So we will console log the error, and what I want to do also right here is return a toast. So what we can do is get our toast from Sonar, and we can do a .error. Let's invoke it, and for the message I will right here just say something went wrong. So that's fine. So now if uploading does not happen, or if something goes wrong while uploading the file, we will right here have the catch statement, which will catch the error and then return right here a toast, and the toast will be then displayed on the bottom right corner of the screen. And since we now have our catch statement, we can now finally start uploading the image inside of here. So in the try statement, what I want to do right now is first of all, again, get the file which the user wants to upload. And to get our file, we can get it through the params. So we can get a file, and this will be of type file. So whenever I call this function upload file, I will pass the file later on as an argument, and then we can get it right here through the params and use it for whatever we need, or in other words, we can use it to upload the file. So the first thing we want to do right here is first of all get our temporary API key to upload the file on the client side. Now you probably already remember how we did that. First of all, we had our route handler, which is this key route, which right here returns the temporary API key, and we can now use it right here to then upload on the client side. We already did that, but now we want to do it in a beautiful way with our form. So let's do right here a constant key request. So request, I hope I spelled it correctly, I'm not sure. And then this will be equal to await fetch, and then let's invoke it. And as an argument, you have to now pass the path where this route handler lives in. And this will be /API/key. And again, if you open your Explorer, you see this route handler lives in the API folder and then in the key folder. And that's why we have an /API/key. If you named it, I don't know, API and then hello, then you would say right here API/hello. But since we don't say hello, we say key, or the folder is called key, we have to say right here /API/key. And since we now get the data from our server, I want to now also pass it to JSON. So we can do a constant key data, and then this will be equal to await key request and then .json. Let's invoke it, and now we get our temporary API key from our API route, and this API route gets the key from Pinata. So now we have it right here. This is the key data. This is our temporary API key, and now we can use it to upload our file. So let's do a constant upload, and then this will be equal to await Pinata. Again, Pinata is imported from the lib folder. This is the SDK which we initialized. Then let's do a .upload.file, and what we have to do right here is now invoke this file method, and we have to pass our file. Now we are already in luck because we get the file through our params. So let's pass it right here as an argument. And now we're still not done. There's one thing missing, and this is that we want to make it secure. If I currently leave it as it is, it will work, that's fine, but we now currently use our admin API key, and that's not what we want. So if you can go back to the docs, they showed you right here, you want to use the .key right here. So where do we have it? We have it right here. You want to use the .key method, and you want to pass your temporary API key. So I can go again right here to our code, and then at the end, I can do a .key invoke it, and then we can pass our key data.jwt. Now it's very important, please uppercase JWT. It shouldn't be lowercase but uppercase. So uppercase J, uppercase W, and uppercase T. If you misspell it, it won't work, and that's not what you want. And yeah, now in theory, we should have uploaded our file. This means we can now return a toast, or in other words, a success toast. So let's do a toast.success, then let's invoke it, and I want to now use upticks because I want to also display the file name. So we can say right here file, then we can get our dynamic value, which will be our file.name, and we can say uploaded successfully. So file with the name uploaded successfully. So if the image is called image.svg, then we would say file image.svg uploaded successfully. So yeah, we are now done with that, which is great. And now we want to somehow call this function to upload the image. And how do you do that? That's a good question. Some might think, hey, let's use a use effect or something like that. But no, it's relatively simple. Right here in the onDrop function, we can just map over our files and then just return them, or not return them, but upload them to Pinata. So right here where we do the if check, if we have accepted files, I can go underneath the set files, but still in the if check, and I can do a accepted files dot for each, and then invoke it, and as an argument we can pass our upload file function. This means whenever a new file is dropped in the Dropzone, we right here automatically upload it to Pinata. Or in other words, we call the function, the upload file function, and then the upload file function does all the hard work and uploads the file for us. So yeah, I think it's now time to test it out. So let's go back, let me go to Chrome, let me do a hard refresh, and let me select a file. And yeah, I have selected a file, and in the bottom right corner, you now see the image has been uploaded successfully. So this is our success toast, and it looks great and it works great. Now we can maybe also customize the toast a bit, so we can open our layout right here, and then for the toaster we can give it two properties. First of all, we can say right here which colors, so let's say which colors, let's do a close button, and then let's also pass a theme, and I want to hard code it to the light theme. Then let's save that, let's go back, and let me again try to upload a new file. Alright, I've now selected an image, and now we have already the toast on the bottom right corner. And I think it looks even better than the previous toast. It now has a green color, we have the name of the file, we have the X icon right here, and if I click on it, the toast goes away, or it animates out of the viewport. And yeah, it looks quite nice. So what we can do right now is open the Pinata dashboard. And then in the dashboard, you currently see we don't have any files. Again, that's because we have to go to the storage. And then inside of here, you now see all of the files right here. And yeah, it works great. I can upload as many files as I want. We can now also select multiple files. So let me select, I don't know, 4 files. Let's test that out. So I have now selected 4 files, and now you see 1, 2, 3, and we should have a 4th toast. Yes, all 4 images have been uploaded, and if I again go back to the dashboard, you see the images right here. Nice, congrats everyone. We have finally right here created a Dropzone which allows the user to upload an image, and once it's uploaded we show in toast. Yeah, that's what I wanted. And now there's only one more thing which I want to add, and that's right here in the bottom corner. I want to display the files which we have uploaded. So I want to show the image and then the name of the file. So let's do that. Okay, now to display our images, what we have to do is go underneath right here this div with the get root props, and then we want to just map over our state and render everything. Now the thing is, if I now render a div right here, you see we have an error, and that's because we always have to have a top wrapper div. So what I can do right now is first of all delete this div underneath, we don't need it anymore. And what I want to do right here is wrap this div with the get root props. I want to wrap it in empty tags. So let's get empty tags and let's again paste right here this div. So these empty tags don't show up in the DOM, which is great, but we need them again because we have to always wrap everything in React. And this means that I can now go underneath this div, but still in the empty tags, and I can now render a div and we don't get any errors anymore. And inside of this div, what I want to do now is map over my state, so over my files state or array. So let me right here get my files, let's do a dot map, let's get a file as in param, and then let me just right here return that. Then inside of here, let me return a div element, and for the div you have to pass a key, this is always very important, and this right here will be equal to the file.name. As you see, I don't get it, it tells me right here file, so I would have to do a file.file.name. This is not what I want to do, so what you can do is the structure right here, the param, and get our file. And this means now right here for the key, I can just say file dot, and then I get my name right here. So yeah, now this is shorter and that's what you always want. And also again, the key is required and the key also has to be unique. And the name right here is unique, so we are now finished with that. One thing which I also do is add a class name for the div, let's say relative, and let's say width of full, and let's say group right here. So we're done with the div, and then in this div, let me render another div element, and this right here will have a class name, and this will be relative. And then in this div, I want to now render the image which we upload. So let me right here get the image component from next/image, and then for the image, I have to pass a source. Now, you might ask me, hey Jan, how will we get the URL of the image? Because if I currently just say file dot, we don't have a file.url or something like that. So what we have to do right here is create our own URL. So we can get right here the URL API, so uppercase URL, this is a JavaScript API, and then we can do a dot create object URL, this is the method, we can invoke it and pass right here our file. Now we have created our own local URL, which we pass to the source. Nevertheless, we still get an error, and that's because we have to pass a alt for the image, and let's right here just say, I don't know, let's right here get our file.name. I guess this is fine. Then we have to also right here pass a width, this will be 200. Let's also pass a height, this will be 200. And let's also give right here a class name. And for the class name, let me just say rounded of LG object, which will be of cover, and let me do a size of 40. And size 40 right here corresponds to a width of 10 rems and a height of 10 rems. So you could also write height 40, width 40, but it's always shorter to write size 40 because it automatically creates the height and the width in just one word. So yeah, we're now done with that and let's test it out. So let's again go back and let me select a file. So I have now selected the file and we see it right here and it has been uploaded. Okay, it looks alright, but it isn't great. So maybe first of all, it's a bit too big. So instead of size 40, we can make it a bit smaller. And let's maybe right here say size of 32. And what else do I want to say? Well, if I would now select a few more images, so let me select like 2 more images, you will see, yeah, it isn't aligned as I wanted it to. I want to align it horizontally. I want to create a grid layout. So let's again go back and then right here for the div, which wraps our mapping right here, I want to give it a class name. So let's do a class name and let's say first of all margin top of 10 to have a bit of spacing to the top. Then let's say grid of columns 2, this is for the mobile screen. Then let's also do a gap of 4. Let's say on SM or bigger, grid calls of 3, and let me also do MD or bigger, grid columns of 4. And then if we are on a desktop screen, let's do an LG, which will be of grid columns 4. Let's see how that looks like, and yeah, we can leave it like that. Maybe one thing which you could change is the margin to the top. Let's maybe say margin top of 6, I think this should be fine enough. And yeah, we can leave it like that. So now we have our grid layout, it looks good, and now we can continue right here. So we now render our image, that's what I wanted, and what I want to also render right here is the name of the file. And how do we render the name of the file? Well, let's go underneath the image component, underneath this div, but still inside of the main div where we have the key. And what I want to do inside of here is just render a p tag, and let's get our file.name. Then let me also give a class name, let's say margin top of 2, let me do a text of small, let's do a text of gray 500, and I guess this should be all. Let's go back, let's see. Okay, now we have a problem. If the name is too big, it overflows the container, not what we want. So we can use a class name, and this is called truncate, something like that. But all it does is just do a overflow and text overflow of hidden. So if I now save that and again go back, you see nothing overflows anymore. And if it wants to overflow, it does a ... So as you see right here. Alright, this is finished. We have now our core UI, if you want to call it like that. But in general, we are still not completely finished, because what I want to do right now is show a loading state whenever the image is being uploaded. Because let me try to show it to you. Let me select one file. So I have now selected a file, and you see we don't have a loading state. We have a toast once the file is uploaded, but while the file is uploaded, we don't show anything. And that's not great user experience. So let's change that. So to change it, we first of all have to get some sort of boolean which tells us that the image is currently uploading. For that, we can use our state. Currently, we just store inside of the object our file, but now we can also store a boolean which will tell us if the file is currently uploading or if it's already finished. So right here we can add a comma, we can get our uploading, and this will be of type boolean. And if it's true, then the image is uploading, and if not, well, then it's not uploading. I think you understand. So now this is finished, and now we can use it. And if you now scroll a bit to the bottom, you already see the first error. And that's right here for our onDrop callback. And the problem is that we are missing right here our uploading boolean, as you see. So we can get right here our uploading, and this uploading will be false, because when we add this file in our state, we don't upload the file. We upload the file once we are in the upload file function. So right here for the state where we manipulate it, we don't set uploading to true. Okay, this is now finished, and now we have to use this uploading right here boolean in the upload file function and adjust it when needed. So when we drop a file or when we upload a file, we want to set the boolean to true, but once it's finished, we want to set it to false. So to do that, let me go right here in the upload function. Let's go above the key request, so right at the top in the try statement, and let's do right here a set files. Then let's invoke it as in param. Let's get the previous files, and then let me right here just return our previous files dot map, and then right here let me get in param, let's get an f, because we already have a file right here and we don't want to mix anything up. So let's get an f, and then let me just return that. And inside of here I want to check if the file which we provide matches the file which we map over right here in our array. So we can do right here an f dot file, and if this right here is equal to the file which we provide on the top right here in the params, we can do a ternary. So if this is true, then I want to return a object. I want to spread my file, so ... f, and get my uploading boolean, and I want to set this to true. And if this is not true, then let's use a colon at the end right here, and let me just return our file, so the f. Now you might say, hey Jan, this was a little bit complicated. Can you explain it again? Yeah, let me show it to you, or let me explain it again. So we have our set files right here state, right? This is our setter. And what I want to do right here is manipulate my state. So if the file which we provide is equal to the file or any file in the array, I want to set this specific file as uploading. So that's why we set right here this boolean as true. If the file does not match the file which we have in the array, then this means that this file is not uploading, which means we just return the file again. So now we have our uploading boolean right here, and it's true. But the thing is, we have to now also could you say we validate it? Because we have to now also say uploading false once the file is uploaded. And to do that, the process is again pretty much the same. We have to again find the file in our array and then set uploading to false. So what I'll do is just copy this code right here. We can scroll a bit to the bottom right here underneath the constant upload. So once we know the image has been uploaded, we can paste the code, and instead of saying uploading true, we want to say uploading false. So again, at the start, once we drop the file, we set uploading to true, and once the file has been uploaded, we set it to false. And of course, we also have our catch statement, which means we have to do the same thing also inside of here. So I can copy this set files and just paste it right here inside of here. This means if we have an error, we will also set uploading to false, because this means something went wrong, which means also the file is not uploading. Okay, so now we have our boolean, and now we can use this boolean to show an overlay for our image. So for that, let's go back to this div right here where we have our image, where we render our image. And what I want to do right here is go underneath the image component, but still in the div, which is relative. And I want to do right here like a ternary. And I want to say, hey, if uploading right here is true, and you see we don't get that, that's because right here where we map over the files, I want to now also destructure it even further and get the uploading boolean. And we want to say, hey, if uploading is true, let's use a double and sign, and then we can return it. So if this is true, we can return right here whatever we want. You could just return a p tag, but this does not look very good. So we will return a div, and in the div, we will return a loader2 icon, which is imported from Lucid React. Then for the loader2 icon, let's give it a class name. Let's say size of, let's say 6. Then let's do a animate of spin, and let's do a text of primary. Not pretty, but primary. And I guess we can now test out if it works. So let's go back, let me do a hard refresh, and let me select a file. So I have selected the file, and now we see right here our loader2 icon and then the toast. Would you agree with me that it does not look very good right now? I think so. So let's go back and let me style the div right here. Let's get a class name. Let's say absolute. Then let's say inset of 0. Let's do a flex and then items of center and justify of center. So now we will center this icon in the middle of the image. Nevertheless, there's one thing which I also don't like. When we upload the image has the full opacity. But instead of rendering the full opacity, I want to tone it down once it's, or not once it's, but while it's uploading. So what we can do right now is comment out, or let me just copy this class name right now. Let's copy it. Let me create a new class name. And instead of using strings, let me get the object brackets. Let's get a cn helper from our lib folder. Let's invoke it and let me do a ternary. And let's say if uploading right here is true, let's use a question mark, then let me return opacity of, let's say 50%. And if this is not true, let's use a colon and let's return a empty string. After that, I can then do a comma and just return the other class names. So this was right here, rounded LG, object cover, and size 32. So I will copy that and paste it inside of here. So again, we now use our cn helper. We then do a ternary. If uploading is true, then we tone down the opacity. And if uploading is not true, we return nothing. And then we also have default styles, which is rounded LG, object cover, and size 32. If you now again go back and let me now select a new file. And now you see we have the loading state right here. And this looks very nice. Maybe one thing which we can change is the size right here. So the loader2 icon, let's do a size of 8 and let me upload one more image. And yeah, you know what? I think this looks very good. We can leave it like that. We have our loading state, we have the toast, and we are now finished with that. Okay, everyone, so now you know how to upload files when they are dropped into this Dropzone right here. They are being automatically uploaded. We show a loading state or the spinner, and right here we then render them down below. But now there's one more thing missing, only one more thing, and that's that I want to render right here a button to delete the image if I don't want it anymore. So let's create that. For that, let me go back And what I want to do is go right here above the p tag, but underneath this div element, and let's create right here another div element. Let's give this div a class name, and this will be again absolute. Then let's do a top of 2, a right of 2, and then inside of here I want to now render my button. So let's get our button component. It's already imported, and inside of here let me get the X icon from Lucid React. This is self-closing, and then for the button I want to give it 2 properties. First of all, a size, which will be icon, and let's also right here give it a variant, and this variant will be destructive. And then let's save it, let's go back, and now we have right here our X icons. Yeah, they look alright, but I want to only showcase them when the user hovers over the image. So let's again go back, and then right here for this div where we have right here our class name, we can now give it a opacity of 0, and then once we do a group hover right here, group hover, we can say opacity of 100%. So let's get right here 100, and if I now again save that, you see we don't have an X icon, but once I hover over the image, we have it right here. Let's again go back, and let's maybe also right here do a transition, so transition, and then dash opacity. Let's again go back, and yeah, this looks great. So now we're done with that, and now we want to create the functionality so that the user can finally right here delete the image from our showcase. So let's do that. Okay, and now to delete the image, it will be honestly easier than you would probably expect. We will create a server action, and then this server action will run on the server side, and then you can do further validation if needed. And now let's create our server action. So let's right here go in the app folder, and let's create a actions.ts file. Inside of here, you probably know whenever you use a server action, you have to mark it as use server. This means it will run on the server and not on the client side. And we don't want to run it on the client side because, as you know, that's not safe. Then inside of here, let's do a export async function. Let's just call it delete image. Let's invoke it and let's open that. Then inside of here, let's again do a try catch statement. So let's do a try. Let's open that, and let's also right here get a catch, and let's catch a error. Let's open that, and let's just do a console.log, and let's console log the error. Then for the try statement, we can now delete our image. So let's do a await Pinata. Pinata is imported from the lib folder .files.delete. And now right here for the delete, we have to invoke it, and we have to pass a argument. And this argument is an array, and then inside of the array, we have all of the file IDs. So this means we have to pass in right here an array, and then right here in the array, I have to pass the ID of the image. So what we can do is get the ID right here through the params. So let me just do an file ID, and this will be of type string, and then I can pass it right here instead of this dummy string. So let's pass the file ID, and now we are already finished. Now if you have, for example, some sort of authentication system already built in, then you could also do right here further validation to check that the user is authenticated and everything like that. But since we don't have that, we won't do that in this video. So now we right here delete the file from Pinata, and yeah, now we can use it in the front end. So let me close the actions file, and then right here for the Dropzone, I want to create a new function. So let me just go underneath this constant upload file, and let me create a new function. So let's do a constant remove file. And this right here will be a standard arrow function, and let's open that. Now, since we will call right here the server action, this right here will be an async function, and then in the params, I want to get the file ID, this will be of type string, and I want to get the file name, which will be also of type string. Currently, we don't get that, but once we call the function, we will just pass these properties as arguments. And then inside of here, we can now do an if check, and we want to say, hey, if we get a file ID, then this means we want to delete a file. So let's open that, and let's do a constant result, and this will be equal to await delete image. Delete image is the name of our server action. So let's import that from the actions, and let's invoke it. Now you see we get an error, and that's because I have to pass the file ID as an argument. So let's pass the file ID, so file ID, and now this is finished. And since we have now created all of this, we can now use this right here function, the remove file function, to delete a specific file from Pinata. So let's again scroll to the bottom right here where we have our button, and what I want to do first of all is rename this wrapper div from a div to a form. So this should now be a form element instead of a div element, and then for this form we can pass a action, and this right here will be a inline callback function, and let's right here call remove file. So this is the function which we just created right here. As you see, we currently get an error, and that's because I have to invoke it and now pass the arguments which are needed. And this is the file ID and the file name. Now, as you see, I currently don't get an ID, and that's not what we want. So let's again scroll to the top where we have our state right here. So this is the state. And what I want to do inside of here is now also store a ID. So let's right here again do a semicolon. Let's get an ID, and this will be of type string. So now we have an ID right here. And the interesting thing is that this ID is optional. So let's add a question mark, and now we have to somewhere pass the ID so that we can use it down below. For that, what you have to do is right here go to the upload file function, and then right here, once we set our files when uploading was successful, we can also add an ID. So let's do in comma, add our ID, and this is equal to the upload.id. And upload again right here is where we upload our file to Pinata, and when we upload it, as in response we get an ID, and that's what we pass right here. So now we have the ID, and now I can pass it right here down below, and to get the ID we have to destructure it right here where we map over the files. So let me get the ID, and now we can use it right here. And as you see, we currently still get an error. That's because we also have to pass a second argument, and the second argument is the file name. So I can add right here a comma. So let's do first of all again the ID, then comma, file.name. Now again, let me try to recap what we did. First of all, in this state, we now added an ID. This is of type string and optional. We propagate this ID once we have successfully uploaded an image. For that, we get the ID from the upload object, because when you upload the file with Pinata, you get a response, which is an object, and inside of there you have a few properties, and one of them is the ID of the uploaded image. Then at the bottom, when we now map over our uploaded files, we can now use this ID to pass it to the remove file function. And now as you see, we currently get an error, and it says argument of type string or undefined is not assignable to type string. We get this error because TypeScript does not know if the ID is defined, but we know that the ID is defined, so we can do a exclamation mark at the end, and with that we tell TypeScript that this ID is defined. And yeah, in theory this should now work. So let's again go back. So what I can do now is click on this, and as you see, nothing happens. We don't have a loading indicator, and this file is also not removed right here from this array. So what we have to do is again go back, and let me first of all again open our actions file, and inside of here I want to return a success message and also like a error message. So right here underneath this await, I can just do a return. I want to return a object, and let me just return right here success, and this will be equal to true. Then right here for the catch statement where we catch the error, I can also return a object, and let's get also right here success. So let me copy that, and this will be equal to false. Let's also give it a message, and for the message I will just say failed to delete file. Okay. So this is now finished, and now we can use the success right here in our Dropzone to again update our state. Alright, since we now right here return our success, which is either true or false, we can now use it right here in the Dropzone to update our state. So right here in this if check, where we check if we have a file ID, let me do another if check, and I want to now check if the result right here, which we get from the server action, is successful or not. So we can do right here an if result files.success right here. If this is truthy, so if it's true, we can open that. And now we have to update our files state. So right here again on the top we have our files state, and I want to now use our setter, so the set files right here, and I want to update it. So let's right here invoke it. Let's get right here a param. Let's call it previous files. Then let's right here return that, and I want to do a filter. So let's do in previous files dot filter, not fill but filter. Let's invoke it. Then right here as in param, let me get an f. This is short for a file. Then let's again return that, and I want to check right here that the ID which I get from the file is not equal to the file ID which I pass. Let's first of all write it, and then I will again explain it. So let's do an f.id, and this should not be equal to our file ID, which we right here get through the params. Then I want to also return a toast, so let's do a toast.success, and for the message right here, let's first of all invoke it. Then let me use upticks because I want to render a dynamic value inside of here, and I want to say file, then I want to get the file name, so let's get it right here, and again the file name is right here provided through our params, and this param is we get it through the arguments. Right here we call this remove file function, and we pass the ID and the file name as an argument, and that's why I can use it right here. If I can go to the function, I can use it right here. And also I misspelled that, but that's fine, who cares. So now we have our file name, and then I want to say right here deleted successfully. Okay, so this should be now all, and now let me explain this code right here. So what we try to do right here with the set files is at the end of the day adjust the array so that we only have the items which don't match this ID. So this means we want to delete one item, right? We do that right here first of all with the delete image. So we delete the image from Pinata and its storage. Next thing which we want to do is now delete this image from our array, and that's why we use this filter method right here. We right here check that the ID of the item of the file does not match this file ID. If it matches, then we just throw the item out of the array. If it does not match, then we just leave everything as is. And then I want to now do another check. So this was our first if check, and that's if everything was successful. But if it was not successful, we can do an else statement, and I want to right here throw an error. So let's do a toast.error, let's invoke it, and let me right here just say error deleting file ... Let's save that, and in theory this should be now everything. In theory this should now work, and I guess we should test it out. So let's save that, let's go back. Then let me do a hard refresh right here. Let me select one file. I have now selected one file. You see it uploads right here. It has now successfully uploaded. We have a toast. And now let me click on this button right here. We don't have a loading state. We don't have anything, but I have a toast that the image has been deleted successfully. And we also don't see it right here anymore, which is great. Nevertheless, I don't really like the current experience, the user experience. When the user clicks on this button to delete the image, we don't show a loading state, and that's not really what I want. So what we'll do right now is show a loading state when this button is pending, and if not, we will just render this X icon. So to do that, we have to create a separate component. Let's go in the app folder, components folder, and let's create a let's call it delete button.tsx. And since this is a component right here, let's do a export function. Let's call it delete button. Let's invoke it, and then let's open that. Inside of here, let me do a return statement, and for the return statement, I will just copy this button right here from our form. Let's copy it and paste it inside of here. Let me now import the button from our components, and let me import the X icon from Lucid React. So this now looks good, and instead of now rendering this button in the form, let me now render our delete button component. This is imported from the components, and if you now save that and go back and again upload one file, you will see nothing has changed. The button still renders as it did before, and everything looks the same. If I would click on it, we would again delete the image, but we would not show any pending state. So let's change that right now. The first thing which I want to do right now is first of all get the pending state. And to get this information in Next.js, it's very simple because you only need one hook, and this hook will tell us if we are currently pending or not. So let's do a constant, let's destructure it, and this will be equal to useForm status. This is imported from React-DOM, and please make sure that you import specifically useForm status. There's also useForm state, and both do completely different things. And then right here where I destructured, I can now get my pending state, and this is a boolean, which means if it's true, then we are pending, and if not, well, then we are not pending. So now we can use it, and right here, instead of always rendering the X icon, we can say right here, or we can render eternally. And we can say, hey, if pending is true, let's use a question mark, let me then return a loader2 icon, which is imported from Lucid React. If this is not true, let's use a colon, and let me again return right here the X icon. Then for the loader2 icon, let's style it. So let's give it a class name. This will be size of 4, and let me do a animate of spin. So let me spell that correctly, animate of spin. For the X icon, let's also give it a class name, and let's say size of 4. So now we have that. We now render a loader2 icon if we are pending, which is great. But now I want you also right here, not style, but I want to do something with my button. If we are pending, I want to disable the button. So we can get our disabled property, and this will be true when pending is true. So disabled is equal to pending. And if pending is true, then it will be disabled. And if not, well, then not. And yeah, that's all I wanted to do. I think we're now finished with that. Let's save that. Let's go back. Let's click on this button. And now you see the loading state right here. It's now successfully deleted. And that's what we wanted. So in theory, we are done with our drop zone. What I want to do now is go again to the dashboard. Let me delete all files. Let's delete them right here. So as you see, success. I can now again go back. Let's do a hard refresh. And let me upload 3 to 4 images. So I have now selected 4 images, you see the loading state, and now you see the toasts right here. Our images have been uploaded. If I go to the dashboard, you see 1, 2, 3 and 4 images. And now let's test out if deleting works. So let me click right here. You see the button is now disabled. That's because the pending was true. And if I go to the dashboard, we only have 3 images. That's because we deleted 1. Let me now also delete this one, and this one right here, and now you see everything is deleted, and if I go to the dashboard, we don't have any files anymore. Alright, congrats everyone. So the drop zone now works exactly as we expected to. We can drag and drop, we can select a file, we can upload a file, we get a toast when it was successful, also if it was not successful. We can also upload multiple files at once, we can delete a file as you see, so we don't have any files anymore in the dashboard. And that's exactly what we wanted. Now there's only one more thing which I want to add, and that's like further validation. I want to say that the maximum size for files should be only like 5 megabytes, and I want to also limit the amount of files. Let's say a maximum size of 5 files when you try to upload it. And to achieve this, we have to go back right here to the drop zone. Then we have our use drop zone hook, and inside of here we can configure it even further to say, for example, that we only want to allow the user to upload 5 files or 5 megabytes and everything like that. So right here after the on drop, I can add a comma, and we can say max files. Let's say 5 files should be the max. Then let's also do a max size. For the max size, you can't just say 5, you have to do like a little calculation. So this is 1024 times 1024 times 5. This right here corresponds to 5 megabytes. And now why does this right here result in 5 megabytes? Well, it's quite simple. 1024, this is 1 kilobyte, and 1024 times 1024 is 1 megabyte, and 1 megabyte times 5 is 5 megabytes. So now we have a max files count, we have a max size count, and let's also right here say that we only want to accept images. So let's write here do a accept. Let's open a object, and inside of here you could now say whatever you want. You could say I want to only allow images or only PDFs or only some sort of weird DMG file, whatever you want. But as I already said, I want to only allow images. So let's write here say image, then let's do a slash and then a star. And then this is equal to an empty array. So with that I say, hey, the user is allowed to upload any image, but the user can't upload a PDF or a DMG. Only images, PNG, JPEG, it does not matter, but nothing else. No PDFs, no DMGs, no nothing. And since we have now initialized our use Dropzone, or since we have now added further validation, we want to also give the user feedback. So if the user uploads or wants to upload 6 images, then we want to show a toast and say, hey, you have too many images selected. So what we can do is go underneath this constant on drop, but above our use Dropzone hook, and we can do a constant, and let's call it rejected files, and then this is equal to use callback. We already imported that. Let's invoke it as in param. Let me get the file rejection, and then let me right here just open this as in standard arrow function. One thing which you have to do, since this is a use callback hook, right here at the end, let's add a empty dependency, so an empty array. As you now see, TypeScript currently complains because it says, or it does not know what type file rejection is. So let's give it a type, and this will be of type file rejection, and this is of type array, because we can have multiple rejections. It could be that we have too many files, and also that the size is too big. And now inside of this function, we can honestly do whatever we want. First of all, let's do an if check, and let's check if we have any file rejections. So let's say if file rejection.length, if this is true, let's open that. And now inside of here, we can throw errors. So let's first of all check for too many files. So let's do a constant too many files, and this will be equal to file rejection.find. Then let's invoke it. Then as in param, let me get the rejection itself, and I want to now find a specific rejection, and I want to find the rejection if we have too many files. So let's right here say rejection, not rejection files, but rejection itself, dot errors. Then errors is an array, so let's get the first item in the array, dot code, and then this right here will be equal to too many files. Let's save that. So now we have this constant, too many files, and please also make sure that you spell this correctly, because if it's not spelled correctly, then it won't work. And what we can do now is an if check, and we can say, hey, if too many files is truthy, let's open that, and let's do in toast.success, or not success.error, that's what I wanted to say, and let's just say too many files selected. Max is 5. Yeah, that's good. Let me now also do another check, and I want to check if the size is too big. So let's do a constant file size too big, and then this will be equal to file rejection.find. Let's invoke it as in param. Let me get a rejection, and then let's return it, and let's do a rejection dot errors. Let's get the first item in the array, and let me do a dot code, and then this will be true if this is right here equal to file dash to dash large. Let's save that, and now we have right here this constant, which is file size too big, and this will be true if we right here have in code, which is file too large. And right here we can again do an if check, and we'll say, hey, if file size too big, so let's get file size too big. If this is truthy, let's open that, and let's do in toast.error. Let's invoke it, and let me right here just say file size exceeds, so exceeds 5 MB limit. And now let's test it out. So let's go back, and let me select about 6 or 7 images. So I have now selected 7 images, and I don't see anything. What's the problem? I thought everything worked. Well, let's go back, and the problem which we have right here is that this function which we have created, the rejected files, is not used anywhere. It's not rendered anywhere. And what we have to do right here is pass it to the use Dropzone, because we want to initialize the use Dropzone with this rejected files function, or we want to configure it. So to make it work, we have to go underneath this onDrop, then let me get the onDrop rejected right here, and this will be equal to our rejected files function. So this one right here. If I now again go back, let me again select about 7 images. And now you see we have a toast. Too many files selected. Max is 5. So this worked exactly as expected. Let me now also select a file which is bigger than 5 MB. Or actually, let's go back to the code. Let me maybe change right here the max file size to 1, because 5 MBs is a bit too big. So let's say 1. Let's again go back and let me select an image which is bigger than 1 megabyte. So I have now selected one, and what do we see right here? File size exceeds 5 MB limit. So this also works exactly as expected, and now I can finally say this Dropzone is finished. Alright friends, so now you know how to build right here a Dropzone, how to upload files, how to delete files, how to do that right here on the client side and also make it secure. You know how to do further validation, so a maximum file size and also the maximum amount of files selected. You know how to do all of that. And that's great. I have never seen such a complete tutorial on YouTube, but you have now seen it, so congrats. And even though you're now finished with the Dropzone, there's one more thing I want to talk about, or let's say 2 more things. So the first question which I'll probably get right now is, hey Jan, so I can now upload images to Pinata, which is great, but how can I store them in my database and retrieve them later on for use case XYZ? Well, the answer is relatively simple. Some people might say, hey, just store the whole URL in your database. It works, it's fine, but I would probably not really do that. What I would do is store the CID, the unique content identifier. So currently, if you right here go to the upload file, you see we do our upload request, right? And we get a response, which is right here this upload object. And inside of there, we get a lot of things. The upload ID, we get right here the created at timestamp, the name, the number of files, the size, and everything like that. But what we also get is the CID. So currently in our state, we store the ID, but you can change that to the CID, and then you can store this CID in your database, because you can then retrieve all your files using the CID. So as an example, again, let me show it to you. Currently right here for the files, we have an ID, right? We can change this ID to an CID. Then when we upload a file, instead of passing the upload ID, we will pass the upload CID. And then once we store that in the database, or not in the database, but right here in our state, in the array, we can then later on call some sort of server action, which will update our database with this CID. So just to recap it again, just use the CID and store the CID in your database. And once the CID is in your database, you can retrieve it, and with that you can get all the files from Pinata. And now let me show you how you get the files from Pinata using your CID, which you probably get from your database. So for that, let me just create a new route. Let's go in the app folder and let me right here create a, let's call it hello route. And then inside of this hello folder, let me create a page.tsx. And now inside of this page.tsx, since this is in route, let's do a export default function. Let's just call it right here, hello route. Let's invoke it and let's open that. Inside of here, let me do a return statement and let's say div h1 and hello. If I now save that and go back, let me right here open this /hello route, and this should now open. And that's what you see right here. And now let me show you how to retrieve files with the CID from Pinata. So to do that, let me go back. Let's go right here on top. And what we want to do is create a async function, because we want to fetch data from Pinata. So let's do a async function. Let's call it right here get data, and then let's invoke it and let's open that. Now, one thing which I want to mention right here is this is safe to do so because we are in a React server components context, which means that all of this code runs on the server. Nothing is leaked to the client. Okay, and since you now know that it's safe to fetch data inside of here because it only runs on the server, we want to now get the data from Pinata. So let me go to the documentation documentation, then in the sidebar on the left side, let's scroll right here to the Files section and let's click on Retrieving Files. And now you probably ask yourself, how can we retrieve a file from Pinata? Well, you want to use the gateway. And what again is a gateway? Well, gateways are Pinata's tool to deliver your content with speed and security. So you can again remember I talked about them earlier, and on the base layer they are a CDN, but they have way more features. So now we can scroll a bit right here to the bottom and you see the process is very simple. You right here initialize Pinata, which we already did, and then you just call right here await Pinata gateway.get. And yeah, that's what we want to do. And also as an argument right here, you pass your CID. So let's test it out. So let me do a constant URL, and this will be equal to await Pinata. And now please make sure that you import Pinata from your lib folder, then as your .gateways, and then right here get. That's what we want to do. We want to get a file. Let's invoke it, and inside of here, you want to now pass your CID. Now, as you see, we currently don't have a CID. In your case, you would probably now fetch data from your database, so fetch data from DB, and then you would get the CID and pass it right here. But since we won't set up any database in this video, what we will do is go to the dashboard right here, to the files, and let me upload one file to get a CID right here. So let's go to the index page, let me select a file. So I have now selected the file we are currently uploading. As you see, it has been uploaded, and if I go to the dashboard, we now have the file with the CID. I can now copy the CID, I can go back again and paste it inside of here. So now we have our URL, and I guess we can now return the URL and then see it in the front end. So let's do right here a return URL, and let me get the data in the front end. So right here above the return statement, let's do a constant data, and this will be equal to await get data. Let's invoke it, and since this right here is a asynchronous function, we have to await it. So let's do a export default async function, and now we don't have any errors anymore. And again, this is safe to do so because this is a server component which runs on the server. And since we now get our data, I guess let's console log it and let's see what we have right here. So let's do a console log and let's console log the data. Let's save that. Let's go back. Let's do a hard refresh. And now instead of opening the inspector in the console, we can open our terminal because this again right here is the server side. And if you now open the terminal, you right here see at the bottom, we have an object, we have our data, a blob, a size and a type. And then we also have the content type, which is the image PNG. Now you might say, hey Jan, okay, this is interesting. This is a blob, not really a URL. And yes, this is correct. This is a blob. If you go to the documentation right here and, for example, go to the get method, so in the files SDK, you will see right here that this returns in the form of JSON, string, or blob. And we also get the content type, which is an image, or for example, right here, HTML, CSS, whatever you store. So if you use the get method, you get a blob, a JSON, or something like that. And then what you do is convert it to a URL. This is because this is a public URL, which is available forever. So this means, yeah, I could now show you how to do that, that's fine, but I want to show you something else. And this right here is, if you can go to retrieving files, this is right here the signed URL. And this is more interesting because this is more secure. If we would now use this get method, then this means this image is available forever. But if you use the signed method, then this means that the image is only available for a certain time period. So if I again go back, let's go back to the code, and instead of doing a gateway.get or gateways.get, let's do a .create signed URL. And now we get an error right here, and that's because we have to right here create an object inside of here, and then we can right here pass our CID and then the expiry time frame. So let's first of all again paste our CID. I just copied it and then again pasted it right here. And then I want to now also get my expires right here time frame. So this expires property is a number, and this number is in seconds. So if I would now say 5, for example, then this means the URL which is returned from Pinata right here is only available for 5 seconds. So I will show it to you. Let me go back. What I'll do right now is do a hard refresh. Now we have a hard refresh. If I open the terminal, we now have an URL right here. So I can copy this URL. I can again go back and open that in a new tab. So now you see invalid presigned URL, expired URL. This is because the period when we created the URL and now is bigger than 5 seconds. So if I again go back and let's say right here 30 seconds, let's save that. Then let me right here do again a hard refresh. Then let's go back, let's open the terminal. Now I have this URL right here. I can copy that. Let's go back, let's paste it. And now you see the image right here. But if I now wait 30 seconds, then you will see that this image won't be available anymore. So let me wait for that and then let me show it to you. So now about 30 seconds have passed. Let me do a hard refresh. And what do we see right here? Invalid presigned URL, expired URL. So this is what a signed URL is. You give the user a time frame when this URL is available, but once it has expired, once the time frame has passed, this URL is not available anymore. And that's great. This means we have a great balance between performance, but also security. And since we now know that we get the URL, let me now also render the image. So let's delete the h1, let's get a standard image tag, and then for the source right here, let me just pass the data. Let's also right here pass a alt property, and let me just say image. Let's save that, and now let's go back. Let me do a hard refresh right here in Chrome, and now you will see right here we have our image. Also, one thing which I'll change right now is the expiry. Let's right here just say 500 seconds. Let's go back again. Let's again do a hard refresh. And now you see the image. So this is now very nice. We see we can fetch images from Pinata and we can render them right here in the front end. But now I want to show you how you can optimize these images. So if you right here click on the right mouse button, you can click right here on Open Image, a new tab. Right here we have it. And if I click on Inspect right here and open my Network tab and do a hard refresh to again refresh this page, you see we have right here this image. So let me zoom in a bit. You have right here this image. It's loaded, status of 200. And the interesting thing is the size. So the image has a size of 1.4 kilobytes. Now that's not a lot, but we can optimize it even further. So I can go back again to VS Code right here, and we can use right here in method. So at the end, you can do a dot optimize image, invoke it, open an object, and inside of here, you can now optimize the image as you want. So as an example, let's go to the documentation right here. Let's click on image optimization, and now you see all of the options which you can use. Image width, image height, image fit, also for example right here image quality. You can optimize and change everything that you need. And also you see Pinata image optimizations provide image optimization functionality directly through your gateway. So I guess let's try it out. So let's go back and let's also remember the number right here. So the current image size is 1.4 KB. Let's save that. And now right here for the image optimization, let's give it a width of, let's say 100. Let's also do a height. Let's also say 100. Then let's, for example, give it a format. So I can do right here a comma and we can give it a format. So currently the default is auto, but what we can do is change it to WebP because WebP is always a smaller format size. And we can also change the quality and let's say 70. So this corresponds to 70%. And now let's save that again. Then let's go back to right here my project. Let me do a hard refresh. You now see the image is smaller. And if I open that in a new tab right here and click on the inspect tool and open the network tab, you will see right here that the image only has a size right here of 367 bytes. So not kilobytes, but bytes, even smaller, which is great. Let me now upload a bigger image to Pinata and let's see how it works with bigger images. So I have now uploaded a bigger image. Let me copy the CID right here and let me paste it inside of here. Let's paste it and let's save that. Let's again go back. Let me open it right here, and we have the image right here. One thing which I'll do right now is change or delete this image optimize, or let me comment it out. Let's for now do that. Let's again go back, and now you have this image right here, quite big. Let me now open this image in a new tab. Let me click on inspect, and let me go to the network tab. And inside of here, you will now see that the image size is 2.1 megabytes. In my opinion, that's a bit too big. So let's again do a optimize, or let's use this optimize image method. So let's do a dot optimize image. Let's invoke it. Let's open a object. Let's do right here a width. Let's say 500. Let me do a height. Let's also say 500. Then let me do a format. Then for the format, let's again say WebP. And let me also do, of course, a quality. And let's say 70%. If I now save that again and go back, you now see the image is smaller. And if I open that in a new tab and click on inspect, you will see right here that the image only has a size of right here 23 kilobytes. So instead of having right here 2.1 megabytes, we now only have a size of 23 kilobytes. That's a huge difference, and it's great that Pinata offers that right out of the box. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching this video. Thank you Pinata for making this video possible. I hope you all enjoy your day. I hope I can see you all in the next video. And now, bye!